PSTA Finance Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Jeff Gow. I'm your committee chair. I'm representing the city of Dunedin. If I start on my left, we can go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Dan Sorokin, Mayor of the City of Oldsmar.
Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
Hello, I'm Brad Miller. I'm CEO of PSTA.
And we have two others that have stepped away. When they come back, they can introduce themselves as well. But in the meantime, we won't open it up. It's like herding cats this morning. Open it up to public comment. Is there
My hat this morning?
anybody? Well, but the best kind, very fluffy and kind.
I'm fluffy.
Yes.
Fluffy and kind.
Yes.
118th traffic, holy moly.
You're an orange tabby. Orange tabbies like to cuddle. There
I
you
am
go.
Vice Mayor Patty Reed of the amazing city of Pinellas Park.
Meow.
No meow here.
Yes, I respect that.
Brian Scott, Pinellas County Commissioner.
And I felt kind of awkward after I said that. Oh, my goodness. HR is going to hear about that. But anyway, let's quickly move on this morning. Okay, there was no public comment. All right, so we will bring it back to the board. Item 3A, we'll approve the minutes to the January 17th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Look at us go this morning. Okay, item 3B, the Van Pool program. Al Burns, Director of Procurement, will present, I believe it's two options for an enterprise for the Van Pool program. Is Al is here this morning. Did I get that right?
Al.
So what's going on with Van Pool? Share it with us, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Finance Committee members, Al Burns, your Procurement Director. And if you notice, I did not say highly motivated Procurement Director this morning.
Yeah.
And the reason because of that is because I'm a little disappointed in myself, and I'll explain why. In November of last year, I brought to you an action item. An action item, I'll read it. Contingent upon successful negotiations, recommend approval of a 2-year contract with Enterprise Lease of Florida, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise, for a total contract amount not to exceed $3,600,000. Just to kind of refresh your memory on the Van Pool program, the Van Pool program is a program that riders take to commute back and forth within this region. There's approximately 230 vans or 225 vans in operation right now, and they support various federal agencies and colleges around the surrounding area. For example, my friends at MacDill, they use it, and I live in Valrico, Florida. People use it for the VA hospital. It's also used for the some of the TSA agents at Tampa International. So it's a very, very important program. We received the final agreement between FDOT and PSTA and T-Barter and whatnot late last year. In October, I released a very, very aggressive procurement schedule. And the reason it was aggressive was because T-Barter's doors were about to close at the end of December. So we didn't really have time to kind of go through. We did our due diligence, and we did everything by the numbers, but we went through the procurement process. But my back was up against the wall from a timing perspective. We went through the evaluation. We received one responsive bid, and that was Commute with Enterprise. And I entered into negotiations. And the adverb in the action item, contingent, was something that I don't do that often. I think I've done it twice in the 5 years that I've been in this position to bring something contingent upon successful negotiations. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background. In December, I brought to you, in November, you know, we don't have a full board meeting in November, and everything moves to December. At the December board meeting, I brought an action item, and I'll read it, titled Van Pool Services, approve a 2-month exigency purchase order with Enterprise Lease of Florida, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise for a total purchase order amount not to exceed $300,000. I look you dead in the eye, Commissioner Scott. You asked me when I was at the dais, you said, Al, are you confident that you'll be able to have this completed by February? And I responded, I am very, very confident that I'll be able to do it. But I'm here to let you know I was not able to do that. But it wasn't due to lack of not trying. I met with Enterprise several times, up over 10 times. They took 48 exceptions to our terms and conditions in our contract language, which is a lot. Through, with the help of staff, Ms. Edith Randall to be specific, I've been able to cut that in half. And this Thursday at 2 p.m., Enterprise attorneys and our attorneys from BMO, we will be meeting to take that across the finish line. It is my ultimate goal is that next Wednesday to be able to take the full action item that I brought to you in November for 3.6 across the finish line before next Tuesday, before we go to the board. However, just in case I'm not able to do that, you'll see an action item in your packet that reads, approve 1-month exigency purchase order with Enterprise Lease of Florida, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise for a total purchase order amount not to exceed $150,000. We've received invoice from Enterprise already. The amount for that invoice is $109,000. So I'm confident in that, in the 3.6, that that's a good number. And it's inflated because we expect the van pool services to grow. That's what Brad wants it. He wants it to grow. Tomorrow, my team is meeting at USF to promote the van pool services with Enterprise. So I do anticipate it to go. So a term that my staff has used, here's me use quite frequently, bluff, bottom line up front. There's two things that would happen next Wednesday. Either I'll bring the 3.6 million action item that I presented in November, or I will be asking for an additional month extension for $150,000. I realize that's a lot to unpack. The action that I'm asking you today for is approve 1-month extension exigency purchase order with Enterprise Lease of Florida, doing business as Commute with Enterprise, for a total purchase order amount not to exceed $150,000. This is my responsibility. I mean, like I'll tell you, I said before, it wasn't due to lack of trying. I did my best. I just ran out of time. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, actually, before we start with questions, I just want to confirm that we have everything right. In the second PDF, in here, the recommendation is to approve a 2-month exigency purchase order with Enterprise not to exceed $150,000. But I thought your comment said a 1-month extension for $150,000. So I just want to, am I reading the right document?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're reading, but I'll
I
be able
don't
to.
have that one.
Mine says
Okay.
1 month. Yours says 2 months.
Let me hit
Yeah,
refresh.
there are, under item 3B, I have 3 different PDFs.
Yeah.
One
so-
says Van Pool Services Summary, one says Van Pool Services
There it is,
Extension
okay.
Summary. And so it's under the Van Pool Services Extension Summary that I'm reading this. So am I reading the right document?
Wow. Okay, yeah.
I see.
I had to hit refresh to get mine to open up.
Oh, yeah, well, I know.
Yeah, this is a 2-month.
Right.
It's, yeah, it's one.
It is 1 month extension. Okay, that's just, the public is reading this, so I want to make sure.
I'll fix that.
Okay, okay, so it is 1 month.
It says
Okay,
1 month.
150. Okay. Thank you for that. So
On
with
the
that,
bottom.
Now that are-
You see it on the bottom?
so with that, yeah, opening up, and does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Al, just curious, I mean, there was a lot of companies that downloaded this, you said 16 companies downloaded the RFP. Any idea why we only got 2 responses?
I think the, I won't say issue, I think the challenge for those other companies was that it's only a 2-year contract overall. So as you know, that's a huge capital expense
Sure.
for just a two-year contract. I anticipate next year, and I believe, I don't want to misquote myself, I believe the next time we go out, we'll go out for our traditional 5 or possibly 7. Because the model that I like to use for when people have to do a big capital output is to do a 7 or a 10-year contract, so they can recover all their, you know what I'm saying. So I think that's the reason that we didn't have much response.
And refresh my memory why we just did 2. Is this just picking up what T-BARTA had left or something, or?
I believe that it has to do with the grant funding. I'll verify that, but if my memory serves me correctly, it has to do with the agreement that we currently have.
I don't know that it has to do with the grant funding, but, one of the things that with a previous contract with Enterprise was probably a couple pages long. It was done prior to BMO being on the T-BARTA board. So they're now seeing what it's like to work with an organization that crosses all their Ts and dots all their Is. So I think that's why they came up with so many exceptions in the first place on this negotiation.
Would we be better off, do we think, from a financial perspective, if we did another short-term extension and went out for 5 years? I mean, is that an option at this point, or does it not make sense to do that?
From a procurement perspective, I'll let Debbie speak from a financial perspective, but from a procurement perspective, that would be considered a cardinal change. Because we let a solicitation go out, and it was for 2 years. And then, I would argue that a company could scream foul, saying, oh, wow, you released it for 2, but now you're changing it to 5. If I knew it was gonna be 5, I would have submitted a proposal. I can't speak about the financial part, but I know.
Well, I would suggest just, if we were gonna do that, that you just throw all of them out, you'd have to start over.
Oh.
Fresh with them. I don't know if that makes sense to do that now, I'm just trying to weigh the options out if we could get better pricing if we went out for 5 years or 7 years now, or are we better off to, do a couple of 1 month extensions or 3 month extensions or something? Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense, but I think on the timing of the 2 years, now that you're talking about it, because I know we've had the internal discussions, we go out for a procurement on this. It's going to take a few months to do the procurement. Obviously, the negotiations might be a little longer as well. But then we also have to transition people off of one program to another if somebody else is the successor. So when you come down to it, it allows us to get our feet wet with the current provider, allows us to do a proper procurement and also transition people if need be. So that's probably where your 2 years come in.
Right.
And now, you did try to woo Hertz and Avis.
Yeah, we actually went to the airport, and I got the airport people involved, and they just didn't have an interest. I'll just say, I'm unbiased. I follow the numbers for the procurement process, but I will say, Commute with Enterprise, they have this program in various parts of the country, and like Orlando has it. I think JTA has Enterprise as well. So they have a lot of experience doing this, and they pretty much have the public transit agencies pretty locked down.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of maybe cut Al a little slack. Al doesn't really have any leverage over Enterprise. They're the incumbent. They've been doing it for T-BARTA. Now T-BARTA's gone, and so I think the reason that they put all the exceptions in maybe is because they know they kind of have us over a barrel. So what the attorneys told me yesterday, I don't know, was only give them this 1 month, if necessary, only 1 month extension, and then we do like the cable companies do, and then we send a letter out to all of the bands, like saying, so sorry, you know, you can't get ESPN because, or you can't, get a van pool because Enterprise is not willing to, negotiate and a good contract. And then we go out for a bid, or we try to get some pressure on Enterprise. I don't know.
Sounds like a
Can I
plan.
ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And only because I'm with the T-Barter thing and the change and so forth, and I know that PST already offers the ride on demand and offers. Is this different because it's so many counties that we're taking on the T-Barter side of it, that we can't use the vehicles that we use now for people who ride late, you know, the on-demand and so forth? We can't utilize the program we have for these people?
Very good question, Commissioner Reed. The van pool program is different than the mobility on demand and those programs that you just spoke about. The van pool is essentially exactly what it says. It's, let's say, all the four of you live in the same area, work in the same general vicinity. You get a vehicle that's subsidized by your employer, and you use that to commute back and forth. It's a totally different model
So
than what we have.
The vehicle's paid for by the employer, it just goes through us
Yes.
for that vehicle?
At the end of the day, at a high executive level, I'm gonna say yes.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Al, I have a question on the operational standpoint of this, meaning how are these vehicles, who monitors them, number one, for timeliness, and they're getting to the, you know, to the clients on time for pickup, or are there delays or so on and so forth, maybe because of, from a dispatching perspective? Who takes care of that?
So from PSTA, specifically Ms. Gabrielle Donaldson, she manages the program. Operationally, with, excuse my military jargon, with boots on the ground and people that are in the office is our enterprise employees at Tampa International Airport. The people take the van home every evening. So it's not one of those where it, like when, I'm looking at James over there, Mr. Bradford over there. It's not like people are dispatching vehicles back and forth, so they take it. However, there are different monitoring things that do go on. The mileage of the vehicle. You have to make sure that it stays where it doesn't exceed and go over warranty. The servicing of the vehicle. And this month was the first, and you all know, and I don't mean it with any disrespect, but Brad's a data geek, right? So I'm like, okay, I need as much data that you guys can provide me. And this month, last week, when we received our first invoice, this is the first glimpse of all the reports that I've asked for. So what I plan on doing is I've been working with the planning group, Mr. Devin Deal specifically, to pick out different KPIs to make sure that we're measuring. How many vehicles extra did we put in? How many miles did we go this month? How many passengers are in each van? So all those type of analytics I know Brad is big on, I'm trying to put together, but this is the first month that I actually got the data so we can start compiling those type of analytics.
Does it tell you how many vehicles are there?
Yes, sir. I think right now on this report, if I were to add it up, I think it was 227 vehicles. And at the time where I brought this action item to you, it was 225.
It's a lot to manage.
Not on our side. That's why we love to have a vendor who does all the hard work for us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Now, does the people pay, the company that's doing it, pays the price for the vehicle?
The person that, the lead person, the person that signs the lease agreement, they're the ones who pay Enterprise, and then their employer would give them whatever amount they put towards the vehicle.
And then the money, there was money that came from FDOT for this program?
It's from FTA. FDOT used to fund the program, and they no longer do. It's fully coming from the Federal Transit Administration, and what that provides is a discount. So let's say your vehicle is $850, and we're providing $450 worth of discount to Enterprise through the FTA.
But basically, the way the contract reads is Enterprise is leasing vans. It is like they do lease cars. Like a minivan might be $800 a month, and then a bigger van is like $1,000 a month. PSTA's contribution to subsidize the van pool is a flat $450. It's the same as T-BARTA. It doesn't matter how many people ride or what. We're just paying $450 of federal money to Enterprise to subsidize the lease of the van.
Right.
And then they have to provide all this data and everything to Al in exchange. But it's really the individual van drivers and the group of passengers that pay the rest to Enterprise.
And then who pays for our people to do all the work, all this?
We can draw down some money to pay, this one employee's salary from the federal grants.
Because we're using, Debbie, we're using, Al, we're using, so I mean, so we can look at numbers that when you bill that fund or that account for those man hours taking care of
Yeah.
this program, we can see if we're actually taking away from PSTA side for this program or not.
Yeah, generally, from what I understand from FDOT, and the person at FDOT has actually run these programs, it takes about 5% of one person's time to actually manage it from our standpoint, because the vendor is doing 99.9% of the work. Any work that we do on the grant side can be reimbursed.
Because I think we have to watch it closely, because obviously we got it because of a reason. We all know, but I'm just saying we need to make sure that we're not going in the hole
I agree.
with this program being successful, and but on the other side, we're drawing out of PSTA funds to make this program work. So I'd like that we keep track of the man hours, we keep track of all the stuff that you guys are having to do, should come out of an account that's solidly for this program, so at the end of the day, we can see if it's what it's doing, my opinion.
I think that's a great
It's
idea.
taking more than 5% of Al's time.
I was gonna, but listen to everything, and he's an
Sorry, right
amazing,
now.
he's an amazing guy, and he's beating himself up. I'm like, you inherited a problem. We got a problem, so it's not,
Very much.
if it wasn't a problem, they'd still be doing business, so
Exactly.
we need to make sure that we don't end up in the same boat that they ended up in.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Brad, you had mentioned that, I think, was it $4 or $450 we're paying a flat fee?
$450?
It's $450. The original contract was for $400. When they extended out the contract to the end of the year, they did it at $450, which is more typical in the industry.
And that is per van,
Yeah.
right? And so, Al, if I heard that right, we went from 225 to 227.
Yes, sir.
So are we paying that additional money, or is it still?
Yeah, so we'll pay $900 a month more for those two extra vans.
Okay, and so is there any conversation between us and them over the number of vans, or they just say, oh, we needed another van, we need to add one, so you guys owe us?
Well, not to be too forward, but that is the expectation that we grow the program. So,
And that's true, right. I just want to make sure that at least conversation is happening.
yes, sir.
All of a
we're-
sudden, our invoice increases and we don't know why,
Well, I can assure you, I'm the guy that has to approve this invoice, and I'm not gonna rubber stamp it. I think I got it like early last week, and I still haven't approved it, because I wanna make sure I do my due diligence to go through and make sure I understand everything. I understand your point. If I see 229 vehicles, and last month it was 227, I need to make sure, hey, who are the people who are the employers? And all that type of information is in the reports of who the employer is, who the riders are, and all of that are inside the report. So I could definitely validate that information.
Okay, so there's matrix involved to validate the need for additional vehicles?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. And this is an expense, outgoing expense. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that we are not receiving revenue yet because the contract isn't signed.
No, we can, we have the grant. We have held a grant because we held it for T-BARTA, it came through us. So when this invoice gets approved, we will do a drawdown from the Federal Transit Administration and get reimbursed.
Is there any concern then if something happens with this contract, is there gonna be a clawback from the federal government from any claimed revenues?
I would think not because it's under a current contract.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Well, if we did like 15 one-month extensions in a row, I think FTA wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I would hope that there'd be some flexibility in there as they understand negotiations and the
Yeah,
fact that
totally.
the fact that we're working on it is a good thing. And I was gonna make the comment on the 1 month and why not do 2 months? Just because we've already done 2 months and we're back at the table, why not give us that flexibility? But if we are kind of holding true to, Brad, your comment of, no, we're gonna do 1 more month and take other actions, that's fine, but I just don't wanna be back here next month talking about the same thing.
I don't want to be back here.
You know, and that was, because actually I was surprised to see it on the agenda for today's meeting. Oh, okay, I thought this was done. All right, those are my questions, those are my concerns.
So I have a question considering what the chairman just said. So if we go for 2 months, $300,000, can you get that reimbursed from the federal government on the grant? Okay.
Okay. But right now, the recommendation is for the 1 month.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay.
If we had to do another month, I agree, keep pressure on them. You know, projects tend to take the time you give them.
Right.
So,
Because they set a
you
precedence
know,
that
if
we're
we
not
had to,
messing around.
if we had to do another emergency one, we could do it.
Yeah.
I would, Al, I would not beat yourself up too much over this.
Yeah.
And I would move approval.
Second.
I'm sorry, 1 or 2?
One.
One.
1 month. Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you,
Well
Mr.
done, Al.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, good job,
We're
Al.
gonna get it done.
That's right.
We
You're
can-
gonna
I'd like
crush
to-
it tomorrow.
A monthly update, though, of our fees and what's going with this new program, and let's keep an eye on. I really would like a monthly printout of cost, fees, people hours, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I think they may be used to dealing with another organization and not us, we just have to set the standard.
I agree.
That's right. Let them know who's boss.
Yeah. I'll go talk to him. Without my cat voice.
Oh, my. Item 3C, drug and alcohol physical exam contract. Trish Commons, Director of Human Resources, will take us through the contract for federally required drug and alcohol testing and physical exams. Trish?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to be here this morning. As you said, I'm here to ask for your approval on a contract for our drug and alcohol testing and our physical exams. These are services that we are required to maintain as a transit agency where we have to comply with the DOT drug and alcohol requirements, which require vigorous testing, and there are medical exam requirements for CDL holders to ensure that they're medically fit to perform their duties. So Al and his team led us through a very successful procurement, and we are hoping for your approval today to continue these services. And I'll turn it over to Al to talk about the procurement.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, your highly motivated procurement director, Al Burns.
Welcome back.
Thank you. On December 19th, we released the RFP for drug and alcohol testing and physical examination. It was posted on our website, and demands are in accordance with our policies and procedures. We had a pre-proposal conference, and we had a lot of interest in this, and I was like, wow, really, really pleased. On January 18th, we received 4 proposals, one from Baycare Urgent Care LLC, DSI Medical Services, Fastest Labs of Clearwater, and Tampa General Hospital. Later that month, we met and the evaluation committee evaluated and ranked those proposals. And in your packet, you'll see a matrix of where they ranked. The two firms at the bottom of that matrix, Fastest Labs of Clearwater and DSI Medical Services, they turned in good proposals. And it was commented in a public meeting, because evaluation committee meetings are public, it was commented that they put together good proposals. However, they just don't have experience, and they don't have the necessary facilities, etc., to meet the DOT requirements that Trish spoke about earlier. But I do want to acknowledge publicly that Fastest Labs of Clearwater and DSI Medical Services, they did turn in pretty good proposals for the first time. And I think in another, by the time this contract is over with, they'll be in a better position to put together a better proposal. Since those proposals were ranked so low, they did not fall within the competitive range, so we did not discuss them at the Public Evaluation Committee meeting. So after discussions, Baycare Urgent Care LLC, the incumbent, ranked number 1 at 972 points, and Tampa General Hospital came in at 921 points. I would argue that Baycare Urgent Care LLC was the incumbent, and they really, really wanted our business again. And the way they demonstrated that, and I'm looking at my boss because I'm sure she'll be pleased, is last contract was valued at $305,000. This contract that I'm bringing for 5 years, I'm bringing to you, is $265,000. So everything else is escalating, and that's how we're budgeting for things to escalate, or excuse me, Brad, stay flat. So this one, it actually went down, and I'm so excited about that. We did a responsibility check, and it was determined that Baycare Urgent Care LLC has the capacity to perform the work and is eligible for award. The fiscal impact, this is a line item in Trish's budget every year. This is mandatory. So, Mr. Chair, the recommendation that I bring before you is recommend approval of a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options for drug and alcohol testing and physical examination with Baycare Urgent Care LLC for a total contract amount not to exceed $265,000, and authorize the CEO to exercise the 2 one-year options. If there are any questions, Trish or I would be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Thank you, and thank you, Trish, for this presentation. And does some of this criteria that we're looking at to choose these vendors have to do with the amount of locations that they have in the availability, how close they are, and so on and so forth? Because when we do drug testing, when we do random, I'm sure, with reasonable suspicion, naturally after any kind of accident or anything like that, we do that. So do we bear that in mind also, that, you know, it's going to be a close location?
So I'm going to let Trish answer the question, but just so I know this is a public meeting and people listen to it.
Sure.
There's only one procurement that you're able to take geographic preference into account and score it, and that is on CCNA. But in this instance, Trish did put those requirements in there, and I'll let her elaborate on it.
Sure. That's a great question, and it was a really important part of our procurement. One of the things that we asked in the procurement for every respondent to let us know is, how will you accommodate a volume of 500 plus drug and alcohol tests per year? So we certainly took into account the number of staff, the service hours, the capacity to meet that demand. Yes.
Okay, good, 'cause- okay. Thank you, because I know that's, from my experience, that's been an issue sometimes. Sometimes you have to schedule, you know, a drug test, but it has to be without, outside of normal operating hours. And then you have to coordinate with the vendor to make sure they have staff to do that and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, if we're good with that, I'm good with that, and we look at that. Thank you. That's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Baycare does a great job. I mean, we use them, and they've got locations everywhere. They got one in Carillon, which is super close to here, so. So my question is, it's great that the cost is actually coming down, but do our contractors have the opportunity to buy off of this? Like First Transit or Jolly Trolley?
Oh, the answer is no for the contractors. However, municipalities and other governmental entities can utilize our contracts, but not the private sector.
Although, maybe, it's an interesting idea. I mean, we in our RFPs for TransDev and Jolly Trolley, and they're required to do this, and
Yeah.
they pay for it, we're paying for it, so they could give us a price decrease,
Right.
and then buy off this, maybe.
I'm just
That's such a great deal.
I mean, we can look into it, and I'll look into it for Trish, with Trish, and see if that's an option. And just to make sure, like, for First Transit and Jolly Trolley drivers or operators, rather, to use this vehicle as,
Yeah.
use this contract as a vehicle. We can look into it.
Probably save them money too.
Good idea.
Because they gotta meet that criteria anyway, so.
Yep. I would move approval.
Second.
I just have one quick comment.
Oh, sorry.
Alan, Trish, you did a great job. I've been using Baycare for, I don't know how many years, but I just go to Super Walmart. I mean, you can get your testing right there. So, I mean, it's
Why didn't we
amazing.
do that, Al?
I mean, it's great.
Well.
So by the way, I second. Second approval.
All right. We do have a first and a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair
you.
Committee.
Oh, thank you, Trish.
Great
There
color.
you go. Here comes the money lady.
Oh dear, here we go. Okay. Diane Randall, Director of Risk Management.
Hi, Diane.
It's never a good thing when you see her.
Oh, it is.
But
we love
she's wonderful.
you.
We really do. We really do. She's gonna talk to us about 2 claim settlements. Diane.
Good morning. I'm here this morning seeking approval for 2 claim settlements. The first one with Tori Reinhardt in the amount of $35,000, and the second with Anna Cirillo in the amount of $40,000. For background information on Tori Reinhardt, his accident occurred on July 15th, 2021, when the bus attempted to pass the claimant's vehicle on the right, and the claimant vehicle was making a right turn, so we had a collision. As a result of the accident, Mr. Reinhardt began treatment for neck pain, and he did receive a surgical recommendation. However, he has not undergone surgery to date. Medical expenses as a result of his care are $16,000 plus, and should he proceed to surgery, the medical expenses could exceed $75,000. For Anna Cirillo, her accident occurred on March 14th, 2022, when the bus rear-ended a vehicle that stopped for an ambulance. As a result of the accident, Ms. Cirillo sustained injury to her right knee, neck, and low back, and her medical expenses are approximately $33,000. Both of these settlements are within the established claim file reserves, and both cases are in litigation, so settling them will end our exposure. So the recommendation before you today is to approve claim settlements in the amount of $35,000 with Tori Reinhardt and $40,000 with Anna Cirillo. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is all fine, but just curious, how are we trending year to date with our accidents? Are we up, down in terms of claims activity, frequency, severity?
Yeah, the claims, when you say accidents, there's always more than we have claims. So, as far as like how the accidents themselves are trending, I would have to defer to, safety, security, and training on that, because they track that part. As far as claims, we are trending, in our normal, 10 to 18 claims a month is what we generally get.
Okay.
And that's where we're trending so far.
All right. How do we deal with repeated offenders?
Honestly, we have a few, but we don't have that many in the liability side.
You're talking about drivers.
Right.
Yeah. Now, on the workers' comp side, that's a different story, but on the liability side, we don't, I know that we've had, that I can name right off the top of my head, maybe 3 or 4. But those are generally bus riders. Both of these were third-party vehicles that were involved. So I don't think I've seen anyone who's had a third-party vehicle that's been involved with an accident with us twice. But with bus riders, yes, there are occasionally. And we don't just pay. We deny most claims, quite honestly.
But to that point, Commissioner, Diane does a good job of quarterly, I think, or?
Yes.
Quarterly, meeting, with the operations folks and safety folks to go over all the claims. Because they don't necessarily see, could be a couple of years later that we're paying big dollars, and so I think it's a good reminder for them.
Yeah, we do a trending meeting.
How important
every
is it?
quarter.
It was like a quarterly snapshot.
Yes, and we talk about what we're seeing from a claims perspective. I mean, several years ago, we saw a lot of wheelchair accidents, and then some changes were made to the type of securements we're using, and those are down significantly. And when we see things that are happening a lot, we sit down and we talk about it and work together to try to reduce them.
So a disturbing statistic that I heard recently from National Interstate Insurance Company is that, and they insure a lot of motor coach and truck across the country, is that 70% of their claims now are attorney rep from the scene of the accident.
At the scene of the accident? Now, that we're not seeing.
Dial pound law on your cell phone.
Wow.
Well,
So-
I'm sure you know how I feel about these
I
advertisements.
know exactly how you feel about it, and I feel the same way you do about it. So, the best claim is the one that never happens, the next best claim is a closed claim, so move approval.
Are there any other discussion, any questions?
I have no questions.
We have a-
And I'll second.
Seconds all over the place.
I got it.
You got
She can get
it? All right, we have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that item passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the Pinellas County radio agreement. Next up is Henry, Director of Maintenance, who will take us through the agreement with Pinellas County for the communication radio system.
Yes,
There he is. Henry, good morning, sir.
good morning. Hopefully this is just a quick formality. So PSTA has been on the Pinellas County radio system for decades, and I have to tell you, it is a fantastic radio system, but what makes it even more fantastic is the staff that actually maintain it and run it every day. What a great group of people they are for Pinellas County Radio. I used to come here every year to ask for an approval to renew this interlocal agreement, and over time, and especially since adding the Looper Group and the Jolly Trolley in the spirit of increasing connectivity between all agencies, especially during times of hurricanes, we have to coordinate evacuations, that both the county and PSTA negotiated that it would be a one-year agreement, but with 5-year option renewals. So I'm not here today to ask for any more. You'll see a dollar amount in there. That is actually what the authorized amount was back in 2018, so we're still under that. What I have here today was Even though we negotiated and agreed to a 1-year plus 5-year renewals, with the addition of Looper and Jolly Trolley, it generated 3 separate individual agreements, so probably well over 36 pages, which basically said the same thing. Pinellas County Legal asked, and our general counsel agreed to just basically consolidating all 3 agreements into this one agreement that is included into your packet. Our legal counsel has reviewed the agreement and has agreed to it, and so today I'm asking to recommend approval of the new consolidated agreement, which is now 6 pages, but still captures all of, with the signature page, I think it's 6.
Oh, it's,
So recommend approval to this new consolidated agreement, continue to authorize Brad, the CEO, to exercise the remaining 1-year options, which will take us to 2026.
Are we gonna look at doing like self-walkies or any of that in the future that might, does
So
it save
the
money?
question has come up from time to time. The cell walkie-talkies are only as good as when the cellular service is up and running. I can tell you that the 2-way radio system here in Pinellas County is almost triple redundant and has very far-reaching over-the-air capabilities. In fact, I can actually pick it up in Hernando County. Not that I live there, but when I travel out to the other side of the state, I can pick it up in the staff car there. So, in the 10-plus years, I know folks have been longer residents here in Pinellas County, familiar with radio. I have not seen the radio system down ever in 10 and a half years, even during hurricanes such as Irma and Ian and all the rest. It is always on and it's always available, and we certainly appreciate the county for that service.
Just wonder, I know like all the police departments and stuff are going to a new digital type stuff, so the whole county is, so I didn't know. if
We
we'd
are also,
fallen-
yep, we are also transitioning to the digital trunking system.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that works with that, it's just.
Yes,
Okay.
we have all the latest equipment as
Yeah,
the county
It's
changes.
pretty amazing, okay.
Yes, sir.
I have nothing. I would approve this if we have no more discussion.
Okay.
I would move to.
What kind of communication do we have with the county through this radio system? What's it look like during times of emergency, states of emergency?
So, the county has access to all of our channels. Certain radio systems have access to the Emergency Operations Center, Pinellas County Sheriff, and all of their EMS first responder channels. What we're allowed to do is with Jolly Trolley and Looper, and of course our own buses, Jolly Trolley and Looper have access to our dispatch center, so if they need anything, they can just radio us directly, and we can talk back to them as well. That during times of evacuation coordination, we can all operate on a single channel if we needed to deploy resources for evacuation. So, should have just said, we are all interconnected in the county.
Because you guys default over to the sheriff's office, right, secondary to St. Pete?
Uh,
Because they're their
we-
backup.
We can,
Yeah.
and they can also contact us directly if they need.
Because I know they can jump on, and I've heard where they jump on and they can listen to what's going on the bus and everything right through the sheriff's office.
The city doesn't even just switched over recently, last few years. It was
It's
done.
amazing, yeah.
Yes, and they rave about the communication on it. It's greatly improved. Very good.
It's a very robust system.
Yeah.
I would second it. There's no second.
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So we are on to our reports, monthly financials. Julie,
Good morning,
please
everyone.
share with us.
So looking at December, we finished with a $44.6 million net surplus, which was $1.37 million favorable to the budgeted surplus. Revenue is $988,000 favorable to budget, driven by the timing of the property tax as compared to the budget. Passenger fare revenue was unfavorable to budget by 81,000, 50,000 of which was attributed to the return of some old passes that were no longer used. In January, we reclassed the November and December returns, and it's about 217,000 to expense, and you'll see that on January's year-to-date, but I just wanted to mention it now. Expenses are 378,000 favorable to budget, led by insurance expenses, salary expenses, and supplies. Turning to the December year-to-date, we finished with a $50.3 million net surplus, which was 541,000 unfavorable to the budgeted surplus. Revenue is 865,000 unfavorable to budget, driven by the timing of property tax as compared to budget and the passenger fare revenue not being reclassed out of revenue until January. Investment income is doing really well at 467,000 favorable to budget. Expenses are 323,000 favorable to budget, with privatized transportation, MOD, and access coming in 103,000 favorable to budget. Salaries and services expenses are also favorable to budget and help balance out fringes and miscellaneous expense, which are unfavorable to budget. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Well, thank you.
Great job.
Wonderful job. Okay, quarterly reports. Amy is going to take us through the PSTA quarterly reports.
You have the reports in your packet, and there's a few things I'd like to point out. In your packet, we have the projects report, which is quite lengthy, so it's good reading on a Sunday night. But our fuel is coming in right now under budget. We've locked in, and we've been able to save some money. Of course, the cool weather has been helpful as well in the recent months to keep us under budget, so we're not running air conditioning as much. On the investment report and reserve report, I wanted to point something out, which I normally don't talk a whole lot about this. This time of year, of course, we have a lot of money that comes in from the property tax. So right now, our total amount of money that we have looks very high. It's 94.15 million. However, we take and we allocate that out into different reserves. We have our 2 month of operating reserve, which has essentially stayed flat from last year. We have some contractually restricted reserves, and we also have what we anticipate to be our liabilities for the rest of the year. Because remember, I'm getting all my money now to spend the rest of the year out of the property tax. We also, since we presented this report for the end of September, we've had our actuary reports, one of which has to do with insurance. Now, as you know from our discussions over this last year, we've had some significant claims that impacts our actuary report. And each year, the actuary tells us, well, based on what you've been doing, you need to set aside X million dollars for your claims. We had in there previously at the end of September about $5.5 million. What the actuary came back said, add an additional now $1.565 million. I don't even have that kind of money. I'm still short by about $444,000. So I'm not worried about it, but I think it's important for you to understand we're not meeting what the board has asked, which is traditional in setting aside money for your insurance claims at this point in time. I've already seen the month of January. We're starting to look better. Of course, our goal is to get our unrestricted reserves up so that we've got that cushion in there and the ability to do things pursuant to the board's direction. So I just wanted to point that out. We are at this moment in time short on what our restricted reserves are. And I'll take any questions on that particular one before we move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is that recommendation to increase the insurance reserves, is that just inflation of the cost of claims? Is it claim severity? What's the?
Yes,
what's
and
driving it?
yes. It's a couple things. What they do, and Diane can always jump in on this, but they take a look to see how your claims have been progressing and see how much they're settling versus what you originally put them at, the type of claims that are coming in, and we've had some very high dollar reserves this past year. So when they look at that, they say, you may be trending this way, higher. It's called a triangulation. You can see it going out over the number of years. And then they reduce it by interest rates, et cetera, to say this is what you need to set aside.
One thing that has probably had an impact this year is our insurance carrier, we used to have an SIR of 100,000. They did not offer that at our renewal last year. So our SIR went to 200,000. So that alone would have some effect on it.
What's the point of having insurance then? That's our statute limitation, right? 200,000.
Well, well, 300, so we'd have 100,000 if we could get access to 100,000 if it's a multi-person accident, which I don't want that either, but, I mean, honestly, when I've told people that we had $100,000, they were like, how did you do that? Because most carriers are only offering either the statutory limits, and some of them are even at 250 or 300, and still paying for excess insurance. So.
One of the other reports that's in here, I'm going to turn this over to Trish, is our health insurance report, unless you'd like me to handle it, Trish. She's become our health insurance guru.
Hello again. We are carefully monitoring our health insurance costs and working very closely with our broker, the Gearing Group, to understand the causes for the costs that we're seeing and some of the trends in the industry that are affecting our costs. One of the things that we keep a close eye on is the loss ratio from year to year. That is essentially the profitability that the insurance agency is seeing from our account, and it influences things like the rates that they will offer us in the next upcoming year's renewal. As you can see, from fiscal year 2023 to year-to-date in 2024, we do have a significant increase in the loss ratio, which means that they are making less money on our account because of the cost of our claims. We are understanding some trends in the medical industry that are influencing that, some of which is the quickly and highly rising costs of medications. So there are some conditions which traditionally have had very high costs of medication, like cancer and some other catastrophic treatments. And there are now more and more medications on the market for less extreme conditions that have very, very expensive medications. That's great for patients, wonderful new treatments that are coming out on the market, but it is making the cost of healthcare even more expensive. So we're carefully watching that and continuing to do one of the most important things we can do, which is to promote and incentivize wellness and preventative care, routine physicals, and those milestone procedures like colonoscopies and mammograms that can help prevent some of the more serious and expensive health conditions before they arise. So with that, I'll turn over to any questions.
No questions. Good job.
Well, thank you very much. So we will move on to ridership and performance. Jacob, very good.
Playing the role of
All right, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Jacob Rabudka, your planning manager here at PSTA. So normally it would be Devin Deal, our senior planner, giving you this presentation. He is working on his floors at home this week. So today I get to be your cruise director, taking you through our operating performance highlights, looking at some of our most recent ridership trends from this past December. So one of the things we wanted to talk about fresh off the presses is our recent ridership with our new Fare-Free Veterans Program. So we're certainly seeing some utilization of that program. In the month of November, we had just under 8,000 trips taken with Flamenco cards issued through this program, and that figure about doubled going into December with about 17,000 trips. One thing I will note about this program is that initially we had modeled the Veterans Pass program off of our TD program, where initially program participants would have to go to a window on a monthly basis. However, thanks to our very own Shelley Chapko in finance, we have now just made this an annual process to where veteran riders will only have to go once a year to renew their Flamenco passes.
Good.
Next is our system fixed route ridership trends system-wide going from October of 21 all the way to December of 23. The line in red is our linear trend over time, and in blue is our total ridership month to month. So most recently, I'll bring your attention to the end of the graph. So you'll note a ridership decrease in December. Compared to December of 22, it's down about 7.8%. And I think that's attributed to a few things. So first, as you all know, we've now started charging fares on the Sunrunner, which has resulted in a ridership decrease on that route. And in addition, we had a service change in December, this past December, where we had a few route changes, including the elimination of the Route 813 in North County, the change of the Route 814 in Safety Harbor to an on-demand service, and the elimination of service on the Central Avenue trolley west of Grand Central Station. So we would expect to see a ridership drop as a result of those things. Shown here is that same ridership trend chart shown in blue at the top, and at the bottom is the total ridership combined of our top 5 routes, which most recently are our routes 4, 18, 34, 52, and the Sunrunner. Pointing to December at the end there, so those top 5 routes combined had just over 300,000 rides out of about 765,000 total rides system-wide. So I'll just note here that the top 5 routes over time, as a percentage of our total ridership, has remained relatively constant. You'll see that as our total ridership grows, so does the ridership on our top 5 routes. So for the next few slides, I wanted to point out the few recent trends with our Sunrunner ridership. So shown here is Sunrunner ridership over the first few months of this first quarter of fiscal year 24. So shown here is the ridership by hour, hours on the bottom, and the average boardings by hour shown on the left. So here we're comparing weekday in red, Saturday in blue, and Sunday in green. So a few trends I will point here is that you immediately start seeing pretty strong ridership immediately going into the 6 a.m. hour when service begins. Pointing to the end of the graph, we do see the ridership decreasing, particularly around 8 p.m. when our frequency changes from every 15 minutes to every 30 minutes, although there is a slight peak going into the 9 o'clock hour. But across all days, our greatest peak in ridership is in the mid-afternoon between the hours of 2 and 5 p.m., seeing a slightly earlier peak on Sundays compared to weekdays and Saturdays.
Quick question?
Yes.
So this is on the left there, this is rides by hour?
Yes.
In what period of time, is this from Sunrunner inception till today, or?
So this is just for the first few months of fiscal year 24.
Okay.
So, and this transitions to, sorry.
Can we go back to that slide?
Absolutely.
Commissioner, were you done? Was that your?
Yeah, so this is basically from October 1 till?
Yes, I think since we, in fiscal year 23, service started in October, I believe this is comparing November and December, so it's apples to apples.
And I know this is just ridership, and I don't know how much analysis you've done, but I noticed from 6 to 7, you have a decline, so I'm gonna guess that 6 o'clock hour is workers?
Yes, I think
Right.
I think that is a likely theory, and that actually very much relates to, unless anybody else has any questions on this particular
Well,
chart.
then, yeah, because I was gonna then tie it back to 8 p.m.
Yes.
and see the bump there, so those are also workers coming coming home.
I think that's likely. I think it could be workers coming home, also maybe people going to dinner, coming from home. But I think our worker ridership has what has remained strong, the most strong, which very much relates to this next chart, which is the same metric shown on the previous chart, except we're comparing the first quarter of fiscal year 23 when we were fare-free compared to the first quarter of 24. So you'll see across most time periods in the first quarter of fiscal year 24, there was an overall decrease in ridership, which can be attributable to our instituting a fare. However, and I think this relates to your point, Commissioner Gao, so you'll notice in the 6 a.m. hour, comparing fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, the ridership is pretty similar. Actually, there's a slight increase. It's funny, I was actually going to use the laser pointer, but I realized my finger actually works for this since I'm about at level with the screen. Anyway, so you'll notice in fiscal year 24 in blue, it's actually slightly higher than in fiscal year 23, and I think that supports your point that we've still maintained a strong ridership among our core ridership of workers along the corridor. But overall, you'll see the trends are pretty similar between the fiscal years, just obviously with the ridership decrease in fiscal year 24. And lastly here this is the ridership for all of the stations in the Sunrunner system. In blue is the ridership by station in November and December of fiscal year 23. And in orange is ridership in fiscal year 24. So for this one, I am going to use the laser pointer. So you'll notice in some stations, like this one here in downtown St. Pete at First Avenue North and Fifth Street, pretty big decline there, and similar with the St. Pete Beach access stop here. So I think a lot of those stops you see a lot of discretionary trips, tourists, people going out to dinner, things of that nature. So I think you're seeing the greatest ridership for those sorts of trips, or the ridership decline with those types of trips. However, where it's most similar are stations like 3rd Street South and 3rd Avenue South, and here, the station closest to Grand Central Station, not too much of a decrease going from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. Again, I think this supports the point that we're still maintaining a strong ridership base amongst our workers, particularly since those are both pretty significant locations where people transfer between routes. And that is all I have for recent ridership trends, but happy to take any questions.
This is such a great improvement, the whole presentation, the new graphs, the data that you're sharing with us is a great improvement. Thank you so much.
Also, I'll definitely have to thank Devin for that. I'm just the messenger.
Okay.
And the idea that you're not just providing the information, but you're analyzing what you're creating.
No, absolutely.
So, thank you.
And if there's something specific that you'd like to see in a future
always happy to
presentation,
make the additions.
Jacob will bring back to Devin. Go ahead. I know, Commissioner Cox asked last time to get some access.
Yeah, this is a great improvement. This is fantastic.
Are we keeping track of the fees that are being paid by St. Pete for the TD riders compared to, because I see the TD discount pass, are we keeping track of those? And put it somewhere on there so we can see, because we should have a little bit of extra money because St. Pete's covering the copay for that, for those riders, and can we see how many of those riders are using that? So that we can see where we're going with that.
So we got that.
So we can see that program. Because I know that, I know in our meeting yesterday, it came up too that Gulfport was looking at a couple of things that St. Pete's doing also, so.
At the LCB meeting?
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I'll relay that to Devin and we'll get that added.
Brad, how do we do with the wrestling gang?
The Royal Rumble?
Yeah, the Royal
This is
Rumble.
why I wish Devin were here, because I know he looked pretty closely at that. Thank you, Anna.
Just curious, how many we had?
Membership was good. 3,500?
And were they rowdy?
This is a message that Devin, I'm just going to read Devin's email to me. So channeling Devin, we had 3,406 rides on the Sunrunner for Royal Rumble on January 27th. 2,398 of those rides were on our regularly scheduled buses, and an additional 1,008 were on the 8 plug buses. This was our single highest ridership day on the Sunrunner since the fare was implemented.
And they all paid.
And they all paid.
Yes, we charged
Right?
fares, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Including Amanda, who attended the Royal
Yes,
Rumble.
I attended, I rode the Sunrunner, I paid my fare, so.
Then Brad, did Did you go to Localtopia? Didn't I see, did you go to Localtopia?
It's going,
This Saturday.
It's this coming, Saturday,
This
right?
coming Saturday, yes.
Oh, good. I thought it was last Saturday, would have gotten rained out then, but it's coming this Saturday, all right.
So you can still go.
Yeah, no, we'll go. We go.
When you see changes in like the wheelchair, the bikes are down quite a bit, do we kind of maybe know why, or do we?
I mean, we can certainly take a look at that. I mean, I guess the thing I would wonder is if those, or is that, you mean system-wide?
It just says,
Okay.
down 16%, down 13%.
There's some seasonality to that. It's been cold and rainy.
With the wheelchair? Okay.
It's been cold and rainy, so.
It does, the long-term trend on the wheelchair is down. And my, not totally analyzed take is that the Mobility on Demand program and the PSA Access has gotten so much better that fewer wheelchair riders are taking the fixed route because they know they can get better ride, which is a
Now,
little
would that come out
concerning.
in a thing where we could see the rise in that and see, because I like,
Well,
I
yeah.
like this, yeah, so
You
then we
can
could.
see the PSA Access and Mobility on Demand rides
That,
up,
yeah.
and then it shouldn't be a direct correlation with the rides on the bus, but maybe it is somewhat of a correlation if the wheelchair rides are down. The bikes went way down, of course, during the pandemic, and then has been kind of coming back up. Has been growing like as the ridership has been growing out of the pandemic, but generally I would say. We have a lot of bikes, of course, on Sunrunner, and those are not tracked. Because people put that in the back door, and then they put them on the interior. But Henry's got he's working with he's coming up with a way that we can track bikes on the Sunrunner.
Oh, wow.
He's working on that.
As a frequent rider, I can definitely attest the bike racks on board are definitely heavily utilized. Most of the time I'm on there, there's at least 2 or all 3 ticketed.
And then now that we have this, I mean, the Sunrunner's doing its thing and so forth, are we focusing now to be able to look at other areas of our program and dive into that as much as we dove into the Sunrunner?
I know we're going to be looking at a lot of our trend system-wide, particularly with our parallel effort of the community bus plan. So I guess the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you.
It's nice to see the UPass program is
Yes.
at 154% over this past.
That's goals.
Yes.
That's what that is.
That's amazing.
Very good. So hopefully that can continue. And the contactless payment is up tremendously.
Really up, yeah.
And that's exciting. I know it's still fairly new, and so, yeah, it started from nothing, so, but still, the increase of 14,517%, that's.
I think that probably has a lot to do with Sunburn too, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, well done. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns?
Now, can we look at access, Brad?
Yeah.
Which is the 4th on the, and it's all, these are all like good, I mean, truly good. The trend of, when we go to the performance, which is the bottom left-hand quarter, and the efficiency is up at 0.91, which the goal is 8.5, which is not a really super goal, but this is good that it's going up. This is very, very good. And along with that, then that ends up saving PSTA money because you're carrying more people with the same amount of employees, driving these vehicles. So this is good for us. And I look forward to seeing that staying that way and improving. And the other KPI, that's a KPI. Another KPI is on-time performance, which we look up top there, and it's above 95%, which is really good. And mind you, they're taking on more ambulatory rides and multi-loading those, which is the efficiency, saves PSTA money, because we're not having to use one vehicle, either Uber, Lyft, or BAM, or whatever, with one person. So, now that we're mixing that up too, and I think the way I understood it from the provider was they try to do it with one ambulatory person and one person that's non-ambulatory in a wheelchair, so it makes it easier on the driver to negotiate those folks and get them in and out of the vehicles quickly. So there's super progress here, and I think we all should be pleased with that.
Well, coming from Vince.
No, listen, I'm going 180 degrees on this
Well
one.
done. Well done.
I'm serious, because we're doing well, and I'm pleased with it.
Using jargon like KPI? Wow. Well done, sir.
I always monitor KPI.
Good. I like it. Is there anything else, time from the board? All right, then I would like to move for adjournment. Our next meeting is March 20th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, John, Mr. Chair.
Oh, good for you as well. No, this was a good meeting. And I certainly, I need to go to the local barber shop.
He goes to Fantastic Sam's.
Yeah, they go here.
I go to Greg.
But certainly,